Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq, with daily insight on the Nasdaq-100 Index, or the NDX, which is made up of 100 of the largest domestic and international non-financial innovative companies listed on the Nasdaq stock market. The NDX has been the barometer for U.S. large cap growth and also one of the best performing indexes over the last decade and a half, not to mention one of the most liquid index ecosystems in the world. Joining me this Wednesday afternoon, we have Brian McCormack, Factor and Core Equity Strategist at Invesco, to discuss Nasdaq-100 weekly performance and well as the QQQJ, the junior Nasdaq-100 companies. Brian, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks, and let's take a look at your first chart here with that Nasdaq-100 performance.
Thanks, Jill. But yeah, as we look for the week, QQQ underperformed both the S&P 500 and the S&P 500 value. QQQ returned 1.75%, S&P 500 up 2.26%, and value up 3.18%. A good week for stocks across the board, but you can see that this week the value trade was back on. I think you look at some of the economic data and from the employment picture, it certainly looks a little better than it did. Yeah, the ADP employment change for January showing 174,000 jobs added. That's against a revised 78,000 jobs lost in December. Non-farm payrolls expanded by nearly 50,000 after a revised 227,000 decline in December. And we saw that initial jobless claims number fall below 800,000. This is all kind of on the back of further stimulus talk. So I think when you look at performance, investors are obviously wrestling with what sort of stimulus will we be getting, when will it arrive, but I think the encouraging employment picture kind of tipped the favor in value side.
And if we drill down to the sectors, where are you seeing outperformance? Yeah,
so you're looking at those value-driven sectors. I'll note that all sectors in the S&P 500 were positive for the week, but certainly energy and financials leading the way, with energy up 9.62% on the week. I'll make a note here. WTI crude has been up for 8 consecutive days, so it certainly helped propel the energy sector to the S&P 500 lead.
And finally, let's wrap with your other two charts. So we're looking at the QQQJ. This is a pretty exciting ETF, Ryan. We're always looking for those companies that could make the next big move, that are investing in R&D. And we know what investing in R&D does to the triple Qs. So I think it's exciting when you look at the juniors.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you look at QQQJ, it's been the most successful ETF launch in Invesco's history. So, we've heard demand pretty loudly from the street for a number of years for a product where investors can access innovation in other places. And in this case, we're looking down in market cap. So I put it up against QQQM, which was launched on the same day as QQQJ. It's the same strategy as QQQ, only in a 40 Act ETF wrapper. I looked at it relative to the S&P 400 just for a comparison. But then the QQQJ tracks the Nasdaq Next Generation Index, which is essentially numbers 101 down to 200 listed on the Nasdaq exchange, ex financials. Right? To remind everybody, Nasdaq-100 is the 100 largest companies listed on the Nasdaq exchange, ex financials. So I think when we look at what QQQJ provides, we're trying to gain access to a lot of these innovative, forward-thinking companies at an earlier stage of their growth cycle. Right? So while they're still mid-caps, and it allows investors to almost ride the natural wave higher as these companies grow from mid-cap to large cap to hopefully eventually mega cap and kind of get called up to the older sibling index or the Nasdaq-100. But I think in looking at the two, they're complementary strategies. They rebalance and reconstitute on the same day. You'll see movement between the two indices where a number of Nasdaq Next Generation companies will graduate into the Nasdaq-100. Further parallels as we look at the two indexes, Nasdaq Next Generation shows that consistent commitment to R&D spending more both on an average absolute basis as well as a percentage of sales versus some competing indices like S&P 400 or Russell Mid-Cap Growth. And that's also led to pretty sizable patent activity, much like has been exhibited within, again, the older sibling in Nasdaq-100. But we're really excited for the launch. Thus far, it's been super successful, not only in terms of flows, but also just in terms of price performance. You'll see QQQJ since the date of launch, which was October 13th, up over 28%. That's versus QQQM up a very respectable 13.4%, and against the S&P 400 up 26.11%. So really excited about the launch, and again, giving some differentiated exposure to some of these other innovative names.
All right, Ryan, appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.